Back again. Things are really cooking now in this dialogue. I mean, I know that reading a Platonic dialogue is not always fun. There are some very rigorous arguments to get through, and there's a lot of reasoning, and there's a lot of parts that are very dry. But if you work at it, if you keep going, there are these moments of real drama, which are just a joy. And this next section, which runs from around the top of page 77 to about the bottom of page 90, is just one of those sections which is really like the payoff for the work you do for getting through the arguments. Socrates has offered some legitimate arguments. Sorry, my cat's going nuts. For the immortality of the soul. But this section really is, what about arguments? I mean, the guy's going to die. This is his last hours on. These are his last hours on Earth, and he's spending them talking about philosophy. Now, to him, that's perfectly natural. That's exactly what he wants to be doing. One might question that. Shouldn't he be spending time with his children and his wife? Well, he's dismissed his wife at the very beginning of the dialogue, sent her home, and arguments. What good are they? That's really brought up here. So, the first thing that happens is that Simmias and Cebes reluctantly admit that they've got some real questions about the arguments that Socrates has proposed so far, some real doubts about their truth. And Socrates himself, look at page 77 in the second paragraph. And Socrates, observing this, asked them what they thought of the argument and whether there was anything wanting. For, said he, much is still open to suspicion and attack, if anyone were disposed to sift the matter thoroughly. That is, he himself harbors doubts about the arguments that he's proposed. So Simmias and Cebes both have objections. The first, and really I would say the most interesting and most challenging one, is the argument that Simmias, at the bottom of page 78, begins about the nature of the soul. Well, Socrates has described the soul in a certain way, and its relationship with the body in a certain way. And all along he seems to have presumed that the soul has no real dependence on the body. But what if that's not true? He says this at the bottom of page 78. This is Simmias. Might not a person use the same argument about harmony and the lyre? Again, the lyre, the musical instrument, like a guitar-type instrument. Might he not say that harmony is a thing invisible, like the soul is invisible, incorporeal, fair, divine, abiding in the lyre which is harmonized, but that the lyre and the strings are matter and material, composite, earthy, and akin to mortality? And when someone breaks the lyre or cuts and rends the strings, then he who takes this view would argue, as you do, and on the same analogy, that the harmony survives and has not perished. For you cannot imagine, as we would say, that the lyre without the strings and the broken strings themselves remain, and yet that the harmony, which is of heavenly and immortal nature and kindred, has perished, and perished too before the mortal. The harmony, he would say, certainly exists somewhere, and the wood and strings will decay before that decays. So what is he saying here? Well, what if we consider that the soul's relationship to the body is like the relationship of a harmony, which is, after all, something kind of conceptual, invisible, its relationship to the guitar, or the lyre, the strings, and the wood that make it up. That the soul is incorporeal and divine, but it has a dependent relationship on the body in the same way that the harmony, which is incorporeal, has a dependent relationship on the physical guitar or lyre that produces it. Now, we wouldn't say somehow that the harmony still exists when the guitar or the lyre is broken. So if the soul's relationship to the body is like that, why should we say that the soul still exists if it's a kind of a harmony? That it too may dissipate in the same way that the harmony of the lyre or the guitar dissipates. Then Cebes, the other Theban friend, Cebes, K-base is probably the way that you'll hear it pronounced, more proper, but we'll just say Cebes. Cebes, at the bottom of page 79, gives his own doubts about the legitimacy of the argument so far. And his argument is basically that we can't presume that the soul lives on simply because the soul seems to be more durable than the body, that the soul may at a certain point wear out, just as an old coat may wear out, that the soul may be reincarnated several times, but that eventually it may wear out after the labors of successive births, he says on page 81. And this death and dissolution of the body which brings destruction to the soul may be unknown to any of us, for no one of us can have had any experience of it. And if this be true, then I say that he who is confident in death has but a foolish confidence, unless he is able to prove that the soul is altogether immortal and imperishable. So these are, especially the first one, seem to be pretty strong arguments against the idea of the immortality of the soul. So what follows then on page 81 is then the beginning of a really nice dramatic interlude.